The Atari Network is a fan channel and is not affiliated with Atari. The Atari logo and name is copyrights of their respective owners. It seems the Atari Network is destined to cover Midnight Mutants in every aspect, as I've already done 2 videos and a live stream on the game. I did a poll about which scary game that you, the fans, wanted me to review for the finale of my October Spooktacular. Midnight Mutants won the poll handily, and beat out such spooktacular games as Frankenstein's Monster, Ghost Manor, Pac Jason, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But you know what? If I'm destined to keep covering Midnight Mutants, then I'm really okay with that because I love this game. But I also love Scrapyard Dog, and when I was forced to look at that objectively, I just couldn't recommend it to everybody. Will Midnight Mutants suffer the same horrible fate? Or will it ride its horrifying subject matter to a good recommendation? Let's find out. When you start Midnight Mutants, you're treated to a bit of story, where a group of people burn a man at the stake. He tells his murderers that he'll return, and several years later we witness him rise from his grave. He brings to life some demonic-looking hounds, and then we see a silhouette of Grandpa as he traps him inside a pumpkin. We then take the role of Grandpa's grandchild, who has a telepathic link to his grandfather, allowing us to get tips, encouragement, and some humorous quips from him. We start empty-handed with no clue where to go, but we can wander off in any direction that we choose. Better hope you picked the right one. A little more on-screen guidance would have been nice, but if you're lucky enough to have the manual, you can get some more story and hints to help start your journey. In the manual, you can read the story, and you find out that the man who was burned alive was named Dr. Evil. This was because Dr. Evil was actually a powerful warlock, who had been dealing with demonic entities and performing evil rituals. Dr. Evil returns and zaps your grandfather, trapping him in a plasmic pumpkin for all eternity. That is, unless you can save him. The manual also points out areas to explore, telling you what key items are hidden in each area, and which ones you'll need before you can start truly making progress. The manual tells you that you need the knife, the cross, and the axe before you can start locating and fighting bosses. They also tell you that the knife is in the mansion, the cross is in the church, and the axe is in the cabin deep within the woods. They don't tell you exactly where each item is, but at least you have some objectives and a simplistic map. But without the manual, you would never know any of this. So the game can be a bit cryptic to start and complete, but think back to some of the most popular NES games like Zelda. That game is a bit cryptic too, and a novice trying to find everything is going to have some real issues. So I don't think that it makes Midnight Mutants bad, just not new player friendly. Let's assess the gameplay, graphics, and sound to make our determination on if it's worth playing today. Midnight Mutants uses a sort of isometric view, and this can make traveling a bit difficult to get the hang of. When you move up, for example, you actually move up and kind of to the right. Now the game seems to be designed around this, with most pathways following this movement. But it's not what your mind immediately thinks would happen. You can adapt to it after some time, but perhaps isometric was not the best choice of viewpoint. The player's sprite appears to be that of maybe a preteen boy, and I think it's a good conduit for the player. But Jimmy never actually has any of his own dialogue. As a matter of fact, the biggest and only real personality in the game, besides Dr. Evil, is Al Lewis, aka Grandpa Monster, who is plastered all over the box and manual. You can press the right button on the Pro line at any time to speak with him, and I find most of his lines entertaining, but maybe not always helpful. This screen also acts as your inventory as well, giving you access to the weapons, healing items, and other goodies you've collected. It's worth it to see what Grandpa has to say every few screens, if not just for the entertainment factor. But the Grandpa character is quite large, and that's one of the best parts of Midnight Mutants, the large Al Lewis rendering and the boss enemies. It's quite impressive the first time you get to a boss, and see the massive skeletal ram's head sliding back and forth on the screen. These boss battles can be as intimidating as they are impressive, but you'll want to find the weak point, which is usually somewhere close to where the projectiles are coming from, and hit them as much and as quickly as possible. Before long, you'll see the enemy coming apart in glitchy pieces, and it's one of the most rewarding experiences on the Pro system. I have to say, the 7800 is not known for great boss fights, but the size of the bosses and the rockin' music make it feel like a truly epic battle. Speaking of music, it's my personal opinion that the boss battle music is some of the best ever produced on the TIA. I mean, I've been using this song since the beginning of my channel. It's impressive how many different tunes there are in this game, especially given that no audio enhancement chip has been used. I guess some of the songs are repetitive, but very few of them get on my nerves. The Mansion song is the only one I can think of that I truly don't care for. But the overworld theme, the cave music, and, as I said before, the boss battle music are all really good given the console's limitations. The sound effects aren't as good as the music in my opinion, but I'd call them mostly serviceable. People have done a lot worse on the 7800, let's just put it like that. Back to the graphics a little bit. I really like the different environments in the game. You'll end up traveling through a mansion, a pumpkin patch, cemetery, caverns, a lab, pirate ship, and several mazes, among other areas, before the game is completely finished. Unfortunately, there are some dead ends that aren't really used in the game and just serve to waste your time, and that's a shame. I can't help but to feel that maybe they would have served a purpose if the game had a little more time in development, or maybe the developers ran out of cartridge space. Or maybe I'm just thinking too much about it. Who knows? Along with the memorable environments, you'll encounter a variety of enemies. Unfortunately, the most common monsters usually share the same body with a small variety of different heads, showing how strong they are. This was probably to save cartridge space, but it's still noticeable and sort of takes away from the game in a small way. Still, I find all the enemies appropriately spooky and Halloween themed, which is right up my alley. As you play, you'll have to keep your eyes on the health bar as expected, but you'll gradually increase it as you locate diamonds throughout the adventure. You'll also have to monitor your blood purity, which acts as a second health bar of sorts. Most enemies will damage both your health and blood, but there is no way to increase the amount of pure blood you have. You want to keep it above 0%, otherwise you'll die. This can be a nuisance, keeping track of what are essentially 2 health bars, but the game has enough health and blood potions that it should be okay if you're careful. Also, your health and blood purity are restored after each successful boss battle. You'll start with some woefully underpowered weapons, especially considering the strength of the minions you're facing. But with some persistence and skill, it won't be long before you acquire the axe, blaster, and eventually super blaster that blows up enemies quickly and efficiently. Using the later weapons feels great, but the early ones like the knife are all but useless. So taking in the gameplay, graphics, sound, and the length of the adventure, what score are we going to give Midnight Mutants on the Atari 7800? Well, let's do things a little differently and weigh the pros and cons before I score the game. The game has some great progression, that is, once you know where to go. The Halloween/spooky theme are unique and fun. There are huge boss battles that feel truly epic, especially given the console that the game is on. The music might be some of the best ever produced by the TIA. Midnight Mutants is truly a lengthy adventure on the 7800 that can be more satisfying the longer you stick with it, as long as you're able to continue progressing. The downsides of the game are the isometric view, making movement a bit odd at first, but you can adapt to it. It can be hard to figure out where to go early on, especially if you don't have access to the manual, but I think we can take care of that here in a minute. The early weapons feel useless, and having to watch essentially 2 health bars can be difficult and annoying. Okay, let me qualify this before I give it a score. We live in the internet age. You can look up almost anything at any time. If you truly get stuck and are getting to the point where it's frustrating to play this game and you're about to give up, just look up a walkthrough to get you back on the path of enjoyment. On top of that, we have to remember that this is a style of game that the 7800 owners were thirsting for back in the day. We had to watch NES owners get Zelda, Mega Man, Zelda 2, Clash at Demon Head, etc. This was our adventure, and it's one I love. Considering all that, I think I'm going to give Midnight Mutants for the Atari 7800 Pro system 4 Pro Line controllers out of 5. Here's the biggest factor. When I reviewed Scrapyard Dog, I said it was a game that I didn't like at first, but I learned to love. Midnight Mutants I enjoyed from the first time I played it. It's far from perfect, but it's fun. Most of its issues can be circumvented with a guide and a little bit of practice. And it's fun to learn how to play the game. It's not just one of the only adventure games on the Atari 7800, but it's a good adventure. At least in my opinion. So, do you guys agree? Or am I completely wrong about Midnight Mutants? Let me know down in the comments below. And guys, this ends our spooky month of October, and I really appreciate you guys enjoying the frights with me. I can't wait to do it even bigger next year. Okay, guys, this is the 7800 Pro System Gamer, and I want to thank you all for watching.